Hey everyone, welcome back to the All Music Marathon podcast. I'm your host, Brian. Join me today, I welcome a special guest. We got Stella Anderson. How you doing today?
I'm all right, Brian. Are you?
Not
Okay.
too bad. I guess,
Good
I
stuff.
was going to say, which part of the world are you hailing from?
Well, I'm in Leeds in England, but you probably gathered the accent is not English. So I'm originally from Scotland.
Oh, you're Scottish?
Yeah. Full-born Glaswegian.
Glaswegian. I was going to say, you're close to Glasgow, where you used to grow up?
All right, yeah.
No, I was asking, though. Did you grow up in
I thought
Glasgow?
you said you did. Sorry, there's a slight delay. I grew up in Glasgow in a small town called East Kilbride, which is part of Glasgow. I was there till I went off to university down in England. So, yeah, first sort of 18, 19 sort of years. Still got family up there, still go up regular.
That's good to hear. Actually, I'm Irish, to be honest, too, but actually born and raised in the States. But my heritage stretches back to the Irish days, too. So it's all good. I guess, how you been recently? What's new?
Oh, I've been really, really, really busy because we released our new single a few weeks ago. And we did our first headline show of the year. And it's just kind of slowly kind of gathering momentum. So we were mad busy rehearsing because we had a lot of new material for the headline show we did recently. And we've taken a slightly different direction because Chris is now playing keys as well as guitar. So we're both doing keys and guitar, which is quite cool. But obviously it takes a lot more planning and stuff, to set things up. So yeah, we're busy with that. We're playing a festival tomorrow, over in a beautiful little town called Knaresborough in North Yorkshire. I think this is my third year playing there. And it's just such a really nice vibe. So we're on the main stage tomorrow afternoon. So we're really looking forward to it. Got some more shows coming up in May, where we've got a headline at a local event. It's just fantastic. They do like an open mic and then they have like a headliner. And it's such a great night because you get everybody turning up to them. It's the good, the bad, the mad and the ugly that turn up. But you always get a really, really good audience. So I'm looking forward to it because I haven't played the Pack Horse for a couple of years. I did my album launch there a couple of years ago. And then the most exciting show we've got is we are the opening support of a tour with Carol Hodge, who's an amazing singer-songwriter, but people might know her better from the punk band Crass. And she is doing a tour with an American. I don't know if you've heard of Julia Othmar. Brilliant singer-songwriter as well. Both of them are pianists. So we're going to have a show with lots of pianos. So yes, really busy. But it's nice. It's nice to be busy.
That's for sure, too. And you get to elaborate more on the music, and I guess some of these shows just a little bit here, too, because I think that will tie into COVID a little bit here, too. So,
sure.
But first off, Stella, I want to welcome you to my podcast right here. And the way this is going to work is I'm going to ask you guys some questions, get to know you more both as a musician, but also as the individual as well here, too. So we'll get to your project just a little bit here, too. But let's get to know you more in general at first. So obviously, I think you told us a little bit about growing up in Glasgow and then coming to the southern half of England.
Yeah.
I guess how'd you become a musician? I guess what's your backstory?
My mum and dad bought me a little Bontempi organ when I was a child. I was maybe about 7 years old, and I don't know if you'd remember the little Bontempis. And it came with a book, and you followed numbers, to play things. So I played lots of cool things like House of the Rising Sun on it, So, but my mum and dad thought, actually, she's picking that up really quickly. So I was really fortunate that they sent me for piano lessons. So that dominated through my sort of like into my teens. So I did all my piano exams and stuff. Studied music at school. I was in a couple of punk bands because I taught myself how to play guitar in the meantime. Had a little bit of a dabble on a flute. Didn't like it. I found it quite boring because I like all the accompaniment that pianos and guitars have. And then I headed off to university to study music. However, I did 2 years of that and I hated it. I absolutely hated it because it destroyed my enjoyment of music. And it was all my piano training is all classical. And I think I'm reaping the benefits of it now, but back then it almost destroyed me as a musician. And I wouldn't describe myself as a musician looking back on that. It's only really in the last sort of, since just before COVID really, that I would say that I've come into my own as a musician, and I feel confident with that. So I've always kind of dabbled with things, you know. I was in a little jazz combo for a while, but then I've had huge hiatuses from music where I just haven't touched it, and say that's because of confidence issues and stuff. But I'm at a point now where I feel the most confident I've ever been with my music, and I think it's because I'm truly being me now with my music. I think in terms of my development to that stage was, I think 4.5 years ago, I received a diagnosis of autism. And that just opened the floodgates for me of creativity. I realised that for years I'd been masking, even in my music. I'd been trying to do what I thought everybody else wanted or expected of me. So the mask is off and I just can't stop writing. You know, and it's just like I can be my own little freaky self if I want to. If I want to be dramatic, I can, you know. If I want to be cheesy, I can. It doesn't matter because that's the musician that I am today.
That's a pretty cool story. And I guess once you get that diagnosis for autism too, because normally people think of autism, they don't think it's more like they don't pay attention, they can't speak too well, because I know some members of my family have kind of had that sort of autism too, I guess. How bad is your autism, really?
It's not about it being bad. It's about knowing how the world doesn't react properly to you. I see it as a superpower. But unfortunately, the world is all one size fits all. It's like square pegs and round holes, you know. And I think modern day society, it's got even worse because we have automated systems, and you know, and so it's very difficult for versatility. And I think that's probably why more people are actually discovering that they are autistic, because the world is exposing it more the way it is. And I think it's about understanding how it affects you. For example, the things that people don't see obviously with me is I struggle with light sensitivity, heat sensitivity, sound sensitivity, you know, so all senses there. I can't filter background noise. I am terrible at small talk. I hate small talk. And I used to, for years, until I got my diagnosis, I used to struggle with it, you know, and drink too much at a party to try and kind of fit in. But now I'm just like, nah, I'm autistic. I don't need to do that shit, you know. It's like, I'll just do my own thing, you know. So yeah, it's understanding that, and it's only bad when people try and push you into things that they're just not for you, and they don't understand it. You know, and this kind of thing of, oh, well, everybody's autistic these days. Well, no, it's just that we know more about it and whatnot. And I think, you know, I had a conversation with a colleague the other day. I have to do a boring day job as well as the music, like most of us, who was struggling because their child was like, you know, hadn't met the you know, the milestones for speech. And I said, well, maybe he just doesn't have anything to say yet. You know, it's just like, who says he has to speak at that age? You know, it's so yeah. So I think once you understand it, It's a real superpower. My other half is an incredible creative person who's also autistic. He's a music producer, a music journalist, he's a musician, and there's no stopping him. It's like when us neurodivergent people get hyper focused on things, good stuff happens.
I guess while we're on that topic, I guess, how'd you and your, husband, or are you guys just like real close friends and just having to live in the same house?
No, it's my other half. So we're fiance. So,
same thing. That's close enough. But anyway.
Yeah. Sorry, what was the question?
No. How'd you guys meet? And I guess this can kind of tie into like how you guys formed this little project.
Of course. It was just in between lockdowns. I was playing a little bar in Harrogate, and he happened to come in, and a friend of his had said, "Oh, you need to come and hear this girl Stella sing." So he came down to see what was going on, and there's a song on the first album, Sweet Kisses, and it's the whole story of how we met. So I wrote that song in about half an hour, and it's just purely the story of how we met. I did actually turn him down initially, but he was persistent. So yeah, and we were very, very fortunate, say, because he's very creative as well, and we're quite a team. He produced my first album and the last EP as well. So I'm very, very fortunate.
Did you guys want to keep it just simple? Because I know your project's called the Stella Anderson Project too. So I guess it's just based off you.
Well, I think the Stella Anderson Project came about, again, it was during the COVID kind of times. I'd already started doing music just pre-COVID was when I started writing again, and it's a project because it's an ever evolving thing, so it's not defined by genres. It depends on whoever I happen to be collaborating with at the time, so it started off as me just on my own, and then after COVID, I ended up just stumbling across the right people. The violinist on the first album, we met on the banks of Loch Lomond. She asked for directions, and she had blue hair, I had pink hair. We had a conversation, and we'd been looking for a violinist for quite some time. We'd auditioned people, and we just couldn't find what we were looking for. She had just finished her master's at the Royal Scottish Conservatoire in violin. And she was only going to be in the country for about another 3 weeks because she was heading back to Portugal. So 2 weeks later, she's in a recording studio with us, the bass player on that used to live next door. We'd recruited a drummer independently of him, not knowing that those two played in a band together for years. So it all quite natural. So, but the project is constantly changing, because then after I did the band stuff, I stripped it back again and went back to do on the second EP. Hold On. It's a much more intimate and fragile EP. And probably going more back to like my classical roots. I worked with Joanna Cavallis, who's the violinist, on that as well. I even got a banjo player in for it. And I can tell you now, sonically, trying to EQ a banjo and a piano in a studio is really difficult. There's a reason why you don't see that pairing very often. It was hard. Yeah. So now I'm working with Chris Holman, he's just fantastic. He was actually my guitar. He's been my guitar tech for a few years, and he went to school with my other half George, and he just happens to be an amazing guitarist, and he's really into his synths as well. So we're kind of like evolving again, So calling ourselves the project, it's kind of like, it's because then we can do whatever we want within it.
Well, When you put it that way, yeah, absolutely too. So I guess how would you describe your genre of music too? Because the way I kind of describe it to you is it's like a blend of classical, then you got country with like the banjo, for instance, too. I guess
right. This is the eternal question I ask: what genre? Right, because we don't fit a genre, but see when you're filling in those festival applications, everybody wants a genre, and it's singer-songwriter, indie, folk, I suppose. It's kind of, but then the first album's quite rocky. So yeah, and then we're kind of moving into a little bit more kind of new wave now. So, and then you've got all the classical influences within that. But yeah, I suppose it's sort of, I describe myself as an indie singer-songwriter, so indie's nice big catch-all. But yeah, it's the eternal question because the songs vary so much in genre. We did a 2-hour set the other week, and it's like we go from doing something that's really just a 12-string guitar and a vocal to two keyboards, through to piano and keyboard, and and even a cappella. So it's kind of it's it's and then that the kind of country influences. The first album has more of a country twang to it because we had a guy called Aid Payne working with us on it, and he had spent actually a lot of time out in Nashville. So we used to always call him Country Aid, so he brought that kind of flavour to it, I think. But I do like some country music as well, so it's probably easier to say what we're not. We're definitely not hip hop. We're definitely not R&B. We're definitely not soul. So yeah.
Well, then listed off, it's like we're definitely not metal. We're probably a little bit rock because that's what you said. It's kind of rockish in the first album. Maybe not British punk or anything like that too. But
yeah,
I mean, England's been known to have like a good array of like genres that happen to be the birthplace of say metal, for instance, too. So you had Venom with black metal, Black Sabbath.
Well, I'll tell you about Venom. Chris Holman, who's working with me, he was Venom's guitar tech. He went on tour with Venom.
No shit. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh man, that would have been a story, I guess.
Yeah, and he is also he's been collaborating for the last 10 years with Julian Cope, from Teardrop Explodes. So the Venom links there, and I think Chris does bring a little bit of rock in as well. We did a live version of The Storm last year, whereas rather than the violin, we changed it to an electric guitar solo. So he can do good solos like that. We've got the song The Gods of Rock and Roll, and it's a tongue-in-cheek kind of, it's all about that. And it's like the band version of that is rock, but more often than not, we don't have a full band when we play it. So we get people to kind of imagine it in their heads, and, we chuck out blow up guitars so they can be guitar heroes in their own bedrooms at home and things like that,
Hopefully it's a lot more than just like pressing the, let's see, if I remember how the sequence was. It was green, red, yellow, and blue and orange. That's right, yeah. So yeah, green was like the first
most really frustrated, and I was like, just give me a real guitar. I found it too hard.
They do that nowadays, yeah. It was like, I think it's Rocksmith is the video game, or it's a simulation of a real guitar too. But I think they'll give you how it all breaks down and everything too. So yeah, that's some pretty cool stuff. So I know you mentioned about COVID a little bit here too. So I guess let's go ahead and jump into that, then we'll do influences afterwards. But I know you mentioned about COVID here. So I guess how bad did it impact you, your family, and then music-wise?
I had a brilliant time. I long for the days of COVID to come back because I had, up until COVID happened, I'd been running an events business and I'd run myself ragged. I was up and down the country and everything. And of course, with COVID hitting and the lockdowns, I went bust overnight. But you know what? It liberated me because it was becoming a grind. And the isolation suited me as an autistic person. It was fantastic. There wasn't crowds anywhere. Roads were quiet. Everything had structure. It was great. I mean, I'm fortunate in that, that I didn't have anyone close to me, succumb to COVID. I did have it twice myself, and I in the first lot, I really thought my singing voice would never come back. It was horrific. I had months of just retraining and building up my voice and stuff, but I wrote a lot of stuff during COVID. I wrote the album Breathe during it. I had my dark days, I think, like a lot of people did, because there was a lot of looking at yourself during that time, because there was this time to think, and to think about what's going on in the world, where do I fit in the world, and that kind of camaraderie of we're all in it together. But yeah, I had a positive experience from it overall.
I would say, yeah. Actually, I've interviewed a good number of musicians, both who were like just strictly drummers, but also indie musicians as well too. So I should give a shout out to Simon from Redoubt Destination first off. Then we got Shannon Darcy.
Yeah,
a good number of drummers too. Actually, yeah. Names kind of escaping. Tyson Wade was one. Ash Wells. There was Sacha. I mean, there's a whole bunch there too. Isaac. I'm popular in the UK, so it's all good there too. So, and actually, did you mention where you were at? I guess so. Which part of the UK are you?
Leeds, which is in West Yorkshire.
I was gonna say, is that close to London, or I guess any other?
Leeds is right in the middle of England. So it's about 2 hours on the train from Leeds to London. So it's nice because it's so central to get to anywhere really. And it's surrounded by really beautiful countryside as well. You're not that far from the coast either. You can get to the seaside in just over an hour. So yeah, it's a great place to be.
That's for sure. And first off, it's good to see you doing well there too. I guess was your other half, was he okay too? Did he have any brushes with COVID?
Well, we met, as I say, in between, sort of like after the first lockdown. So then we locked down together after that. So my second bout of COVID, we had it together, So again, it was that kind of bonding experience as well, and he liked it too. They kind of like everything locked down and whatnot, So yeah. It was great. And then, we put time and effort into building ourselves a home studio at the time and stuff, so being really creative and that. So, yeah, but I think he misses it a little bit as well. I would long for another lockdown.
But there's better working from home, yeah. So I would have to agree with you on that. So saved on gas. So, yeah, you can see why. But in all seriousness, it's good to see you both are doing well there, too. So, actually, the way you're kind of describing it, too, it's almost like how that one song goes, stuck in the middle with you. So I guess in terms of COVID, too, I guess, how bad was the music scene impacted where you're from right now?
Again, like everywhere else, I mean, particularly the grassroots music scene has been absolutely devastated. And I think that started with COVID and, the hospitality industry and whatnot, and venues really struggling to recover after COVID. And, there was a lot of fundraising going on, things like that, during that time. And have you heard the Music Venues Trust? It's a huge organisation in the UK that raises money and supports grassroots music. So they're campaigning, for example, for the big arenas to be given contributions from every ticket sale to grassroots music, because the grassroots music industry in the UK is on its arse, basically, because what's happened is you've got like the arenas, and people are paying hundreds of pounds to go to see arena shows, but then they won't pay £10 to go and see a local band. But it's not as simple. I mean, people go and see the arena shows, I think, because it's a big event for them. You know, they book the hotels, all that kind of stuff. But they're kind of going out to see a band in your local pub is getting more and more difficult, because what's happening is, I don't know if this is the same in the States, is pubs are just booking tribute bands all the time. It's become, oh my God, it's just taking over everything, you know, and it's like they're just not supporting original music. And you know, grassroots musicians are really, really struggling with that. And then so we've lost, we're losing, you know, handfuls of venues every couple of months, you know. And it's like Leeds, where I am now, used to be fantastic for grassroots. We had a really famous venue called the Duchess that for years, like Nirvana played there and everything, you know, before they were famous and everything. And we had lots of venues like that, and they've all just slowly disappeared. But then after COVID, you've got the impact of COVID and then them closing. But now you've got a cost of living crisis. You've got, you know, that the venues can't afford to open the doors because the bills are so high. But I feel like there's a pushback coming from grassroots music. I think my prediction is we're going to go back to more DIY gigs, where we'll go and hire a community centre or a village hall and put our own shows on, where people bring their own booze. We used to do that back in the 80s. You know, so you cut the middleman out of needing the landlord that's going to take all the revenue and take your merch cuts and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, I think sometimes things have to be destroyed to be rebuilt. And I'm seeing that in the UK in particular, the metal scene is really strong. George... he's a music journalist, so he covers all the sort of underground heavy metal stuff and that for the magazine that he works for, and it's incredible what's going on in the metal scene. It's thriving, but it's the venues that are the problem. The scene, you know, the music scene in itself, it's there, but we're just lacking venues. People are not being paid properly. You know, it's like, you'll always get somebody who will go and do the gig for a quarter of what they should be getting paid, you know, and then the venues complain that they're not getting the punters in. And it's just like, well, if you put crap on, no one's going to come. You know, you need to put your hand in your pocket and get good musicians in, you know. So it's interesting. But I don't think it has recovered after COVID, say, because it's just been blow after blow here, you know, because of costs of things. And people don't have the money to go out either. And it's not just the buying of the ticket. It's the public transport in the UK is terrible. So people then have to pay for taxis to get everywhere, you know. The city centres are becoming very inaccessible because they're trying to make them these green spaces with cycle lanes everywhere. This Leeds city centre now, I won't play a show there in the city centre because I cannot physically unload my gear. I have a stage piano. I can't haul it all the way half a mile from a car park, you know. And it's, you know, it's completely inaccessible. So there's so many factors, and I think, you know, our local sort of government and stuff are responsible for that as well, is they're making it difficult. I mean, we did a show a few weeks ago and we sold out and it was really successful, but you know, I think part of the key was it wasn't in the city centre and we started and finished early so people could get a bus. You know, it's things like that. You know, if you've got no late night transport infrastructure, people are not going to come out. I mean, the nightclub scene in the UK is dying as well, because young people's going out patterns have changed as well. They don't drink as much alcohol as perhaps my generation did, you know. So yeah, there's big changes happening.
Yeah. I don't want to say a reckoning too, because it almost sounds like a bad word, to be honest. So, because say why, and COVID really messed up more of the social skills when you think about it too. It really seemed to be the dagger in the heart whenever you think about it too. So I can see why. And it's kind of a shame too. And it also seems to kind of delve into like Spotify, for instance, too. I mean, musicians are not getting paid for like Spotify too, or any of those ones too. I mean, even if I feel like if it was to like increase like a penny, like per 10 streams, just on Spotify, for instance, I feel like that would be enough to cover your expenses and everything too. But I don't know.
But isn't that shameful that we're begging even for a penny? It's just, you know, I don't understand any of it in terms of like algorithms and whatnot, and I hate Spotify. I don't use it personally. I just have a free account to do booster playlists for other people who are in bands. You know, that's all I use it for. And my first EP, my first solo EP, it's quite funny. I released it. I didn't really do any promotion or anything. Went back on my account a few months later, went, what? 19,000 streams. I'm like, where's that come from? TikTok. Do you know how much money I made?
Was it barely even $1?
Yeah. I think it was about 20 pence or something that I made. Yeah, so less than $1. But yeah, some reason my song "Breathe" was really popular in Thailand and Cambodia. How did that happen? I don't know, but it was TikTok, you know, and I think it just goes to show just how random it all is. You know, if you hit lucky with streams, then yeah, okay. But I think I was just having a conversation with George earlier about this, about Spotify, how I think it's causing us to take our eye off the ball and the true goal of what we're doing our music for. I'm seeing, and I've been caught up in this myself, this scrabble to get to the 1,000 streams, and it's just like, for what? You know, for what? You know, it's not meaningful if you're having to really, you know, struggle for those streams and stuff. What's more meaningful is going out and playing a show and people going, do you know what, I really like that. Where can I hear it? And you go, you can point them back to that. That's where you get, for me, that's more meaningful. You know, if people hear you live and you can signpost them then, you know, so we have like little postcards with like our QR code for, you know, where they can access and all that sort of stuff. You know, we give out really beautiful postcards at gigs with all our information on. And I think you have to just get out there and play, you know. And I think there's too many people are getting into this obsessive, well, I put all this together in my bedroom, but actually they couldn't actually perform it live, you know. And for me, the first album, Breathe, it was really, really important to me that everything that we recorded, we could replicate live. We could play it as good live as we could on the recording. And I think we achieved that. But yes, Spotify, and just like, it's just absolutely decimated the music industry, and it's devalued music. Because I tell you what was interesting was George the other day he was doing an event for a charity, Metal for Good, and he was doing a metal DJ set, and he came up to me and went, where do I actually buy music now? He said, I can stream it, but I can't actually seem to buy it. And I hadn't even thought about that, you know. I mean, you can. It's quite difficult. You can go through Amazon and stuff, but it's not easy to actually, you know, there's only really Bandcamp, you know. And it's like, yeah, we're producing all this music out there. Nobody actually owns music anymore. You know, I look at my vinyl collection, I look at my CD collection, they're mine. I own them, you know. You know, whereas with streaming services, if the internet just cut off, we no longer had it. There's some people who will have no music. They won't have any access to music because you've cut off streaming.
And it's like a little bit of horror sort of scenario right there. Or if you like, because I guess they wouldn't be able to use their phones either, too. So I mean, like, everybody would just start going insane. They just start running on the streets like it was like a mad horde of zombies, for instance. So,
whereas I've got a CD player. I've still got a turntable to play my vinyl on. I've even got a cassette player. I've got all of them. So, so come the end of the internet, I'm going to be okay. But yeah, I think it's truly awful that people don't own music. I used to love it when I was younger, saving up money to go and buy music. And you come home with it, and it's just like you'd be reading all the cover of the album and all of that and in great detail, and it was just, you were so proud of it. And even if you didn't really like it at first, what you listened, you made yourself listen to it because you owned it. You would listen to the whole album and you'd go through every detail of it. Now it's just, don't like it, skip.
Yeah, I can see why they too. But you are right in terms of like how it devalued music in a way too, because, and this is funny too, because in most of my interviews they always say like, try not to make it a numbers game. But in some cases it creeps into your mind like, I just need some sort of numbers in order to try to afford this and that in order to pay my bills. So I can see what you mean too. So I don't know. We'll have to figure something out at some points here too, because I think there was something just in U.S. Congress. I don't know how it is with like UK, for instance, too, but I think they were going to try to at least boost what more musicians can earn through streaming. So it's still up in the air at the moment too, which I doubt they're really going to do anything about it because they're just slaves to the corporate world, as we probably like to say at this point, even though it's probably my punk side talking right there. So I think it's
the thing is, though, it's like, I mean, playing live is probably the only way to make any money now. But even the big bands, still have to have jobs. I was really surprised at this, George has interviewed some really big name bands who've gone on European tours and all sorts. And during the day, they're working for the National Health Service, so they're doing a computerized job so they can do it from distance, And they're like, these are guys who've got like 1 million followers on Facebook. And they're still having to work a day job. And then you've got venues who are trying to take cut of merch as well, which is just disgusting. I mean, there's been a backlash against that because the O2 Academy venues in the UK are really bad for that. So a lot of bands have been like basically setting up a merch stall in a local pub down the road, things like that, to get around it. Because it's disgusting, that they've done nothing towards the design or the production of that, yet they think they're entitled to a cut of it. It's disgusting. They might as well ask for a cut of the royalties as well, they're providing the venue, which is hired, and they're making money on the bar. So I think if you're a musician these days, I think you have to really take the pragmatic approach of, you will need a day job of some sort to keep your income steady. And if you make anything else as a musician, it's a bonus, and I think you'll fall at the first hurdle if all you're thinking about is how much money am I going to make out of this. I have to do what I call my bread and butter gigs, where I go and sit with a piano in a cocktail bar and do covers, or play down at the local casino, I've just said I'll go and do some stuff down at a holiday park, And last year I was doing a couple of hours a month in an old people's home, That's where you make your money. But the problem is, if you do too much of that, you lose your creative side and you can get bogged down by it. And I've seen a lot of musicians who kind of regret it because they don't get to do enough gigs where they're playing their own songs, and they lose a part of themselves because all they're worrying about all the time is, well, I need to pay the bills. Whereas, I do a day job that covers all my bills, and then that actually liberates me in order to do my music and to be choosy. I don't take every gig that's offered. I'm probably a bit snooty about it actually now, but I don't want to play in a place where people are going to get so drunk and fall over and trash my piano. It's as simple as that. If there's not a proper performance area, or if it's like I'll play like say cocktail bars and things like that, then and that's, I mean, you get to meet some amazing people. I mean, last year I played this little cocktail bar in Harrogate, and I walked in to set up, and the ex-Scottish Prime Minister Nicola Sturgeon is sat there. So I'm now saying on my EPK, I've played for the ex-Scottish Prime Minister, because I have. You know, and it's that thing of like, you never know when you're doing those sort of gigs as well. You can meet some great people.
Literally, in that case, yeah, I can see why. All right, we'll have to see what happens, but best of luck on your journey, and just kind of keep going with the flow right here, I guess. Would you say that's been one of your biggest challenges, or have you faced like many other challenges being a musician?
I think the eternal challenge that most musicians face is that self-confidence, that question yourself, try not to focus on what other people are doing because it undermines your confidence, you know. But I think that the day you stop questioning yourself and the day that you stop examining yourself is the day you become arrogant. And I think that's wrong. So I think, you know, it's a good I think it's a good barometer in terms of that your head's not getting too big, you know, to have that. So it's like we all have doubts about what we're doing, you know, and it's like we all take on board the negative things that are said rather than the positive, you know. And I think that's just the eternal battle for any creative, you know, because what you're doing is so subjective. There's no right or wrong about it, you know. Either people will like it, hate it. I'd rather they hated it than be indifferent, though. I think one of the things I've struggled with the most is indifference, or people that, and it's usually people you know, friends, family, that kind of stuff, that are the most indifferent about your music. You know, you get some who will support you stuff, but you get others who would never come and see you at a gig. You know, they would never, you know, and I know there's still friends of mine who've not listened to my new single. You know, all I'm asking is 5 minutes for them to listen to it and tell me what you honestly think. But to not bother, that's the most difficult part, I think. You know, because you put your heart and soul into things, and then you've got all this self-doubt that comes with it and whatnot. But, you know, it's like getting on stage. There's nothing beats it though, getting on stage and those doubts just melt away and you have a really, really good time. And then every time that you go through that cycle, you think, right, okay, well, yeah, I'm going to have my lows. You know, I'm not going to be on cloud nine all the time. And you get those points where, you know, I haven't got any shows coming up. Nobody wants to book me, you know, and it's just like, well, you have to go and kick a few doors open then. You know, if you have belief that you can do it, then just go kick the doors open. But it's an eternal struggle, you know. And sometimes you're thinking, well, is this my time where I'm going to start fizzling out and that's me done?
Yeah, I can see why there too. You know, it's kind of a shame too, especially when your own friends and family is not going to take, I was going to say jokingly, the Pantera song 5 minutes alone just to kind of do this and that too. So yeah, I can understand.
Yeah.
I don't know. I tend to delve more to the metal music, so I don't know. It's not my parents' cup of tea, but I think they still love and support me nonetheless with the music endeavor.
Yeah. I'm not saying that they don't support me. I'm saying, but it's surprising how many people just don't even talk about it. You know, and that's what's surprising. You know, it's like, so you feel like you kind of, that you're imposing it on people because they don't even ask you, how's it going? You know, so that's what I mean. You retreat into your little huddles of musician friends and stuff, you know. But I mean, I've found the Band Together online community on Facebook is just absolutely fantastic. You know, I've never known such an amazing, supportive bunch of people. You know, everyone's like come on, you can do this sort of thing, and that's great because you got to have your tribe somewhere.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I guess when did you join? Because I actually remember interviewing Vox and Sticks a while back, and that was actually my introduction to Band Together, as well as also their music as well there too. So I guess, how did you join?
A friend of mine, Katie, suggested, because I was going through one. I think it's about 6 months ago, because I was going through a pretty kind of like down phase, where I was just feeling really hopeless and thinking about packing it all in and stuff, and she suggested that I join, and it's been brilliant. It's one of the best suggestions anyone's ever made. So yeah, I've found some really, really decent people on there, and I've come across some music that I would never have come across otherwise. Some of the playlists that get put together, it's really exciting, because if you stick to an algorithm from your streamer, you would never come across some of these songs. And there's some great music out there that's just not being heard.
You get out and spread the word. That's what we got to do more of these days, yeah. But yeah, definitely what Christina and them are doing on there, it definitely helps out.
Amazing.
I don't know if they reached 8,000 yet. Last time I checked, it was like 7.5 thousand.
Yeah, I wonder if it'll get to the point where it's too big. That's the only problem, isn't it?
Becomes too saturated, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll have to see, but tread carefully. We'll have to see what happens. I did forget to ask this too, I guess. Who do you consider was more of a big influence? Because like we were talking earlier, you have like folk music with country, maybe a little bit of electronic. I don't know about electronic, but I guess go ahead. I guess who really was an influence on you?
I would say one of my biggest influences right from childhood was, I don't know if you've heard of a British singer called Hazel O'Connor.
That sounds familiar, but go ahead.
Right, she basically wrote the music and starred in a film called Breaking Glass in the 80s, and it was Dodi Al-Fayed was the producer. And it's a real underground movie about a girl in a punk band, who gets jettisoned to fame, and succumbs to all the trappings of that. And it's a really powerful film, and there's a lot of very famous people in it, who went on to do things after that film. But the soundtrack to it is just wow. My young self just fell in love with it. The drama, I still love it today. And yeah, I think the songs on that are just, they're so powerful and so honest, and it kind of my sort of kind of punk kind of roots and stuff, it kind of tapped into that as well. But I was also very into musical theatre back then, my classical music, so there's all sorts of, I've always liked drama in my music, so whilst I've listened to, so I've been into sort of extreme punk music and whatnot as well, and even I'm a fan of the Butthole Surfers, but then I'll also listen to the soundtrack from Nashville, it's, and I really enjoyed that show, Nashville, because until I watched that show, I didn't appreciate country music. And I didn't realise just how expansive the genres are of it. And that was, and so yeah, that was pretty good as well. But yeah, and then I went through a goth stage as well. So I've got so many influences but it's all about drama. It's definitely, I mean, somebody said to me, a show I did last year, I really kind of laid back ethereal version of Trust in Me from the Jungle Book. And then I segue into my song, The Forest. And then I segue into my song, The Storm, right? So it's like this whole kind of segue thing. And I remember I was sandwiched in between two punk bands, right? And I'm doing this really ethereal kind of thing going on. And one of the guys in one of the punk bands came up to me afterwards and he said, "That was so dramatic." He said, "It could have been from a Disney." I was like, yeah, it was. The first song.
The first one was, yeah, that was I was trying to figure because it was mesmerizing eyes too, but I wanted to also say it was maybe some sort of high LSD, or maybe we could say LSD. It was high on LSD.
But yes, so I think, yeah, anything to do with drama. And I've noticed I had this realization lately that there's two classical pieces of music in particular that have influenced me heavily, and that was Chopin's Raindrop Prelude. I played that because I played that for an exam way back, and I loved that it created the thunderstorm and, you know, the soundscape of the rain and everything. And that's very much in my song The Storm. I wanted to create soundscape, and I remember saying to our drummer, forget rhythm. I don't want rhythm. I want drama and soundscape. You know, you're creating thunder. It doesn't have to be 4/4 time, you know. It's like, you know, so there's that. And then Mendelssohn's Hebrides Overture, again, because that was all about the drama of, like, you know, the cave and the sea, and, you know, so, and I think as well that ties into my Celtic roots as well. You know, it's a lot of the Celtic kind of folk music and stuff. So there's definitely a kind of Celtic influence that comes in as well. But yeah, drama, definitely. I love a bit of drama. And like I said, years ago, I was afraid to write those songs because I thought they were cheesy and people wouldn't appreciate them. But now I'm actually doing them and I'm performing them. People are not expecting it. And to see their faces when you put on this full-on, here's a storm, I'm creating a storm, and you play this dramatic piano, you know, and it's great. It's just great to entertain people that way. And I never realised, again, until recently, that all that time I spent studying the classical music and, like, Mozart as well, stuff, a lot of stuff, like, you can hear the influence of Mozart in my song The Forest. You know, all those hours of blood, sweat and tears of having to play this stuff, you know, back then, that now I'm actively in my memory banks thinking, ooh, what can I look at? So there's a song that I've written where I've actually got the Moonlight Sonata in the middle of it. So what I've done is I've taken the arpeggios from the Moonlight Sonata, condensed them into chords, and written a song, and it breaks out into the Moonlight Sonata in the middle of the song. You know, I've just got another new song we're just about to go and record, actually, called Fading Away, where I've taken the Dido's Lament from Henry Purcell's Dido and Aeneas. You know? And again, you know, so I was playing around with all the structures and the chords of it and stuff, you know, and I love that kind of early Renaissance Baroque music as well, and that influences some of my songs as well. So I might use slightly different chord progressions because I've got that in the back of my mind. So I'm on this kind of exciting, right? Oh, right. Let me look at what other classical pieces I used to play, and let me see what I can do with that. If I can, you know, a homage to it, you know. So it's exciting.
That's for sure too. Pulling Beethoven and a little bit of Mozart as well too. I mean, she's doing the good kind of drama too, because there's always the bad kind of drama, which still always air on, like, the media waves, for instance, too. So yeah, she did the good kind of drama. So it's almost like watching a movie, for instance. So or visualize the sort of movie too.
Yeah.
I did that when you were doing Trust in Me. I was gonna say, was your eyes kind of lighting up and everything too, and look like you're trying to hypnotize the audience, for instance.
It is a kind of form of hypnotism. I think when you create something that's magical, and again, that's the difference between a live performance, isn't it, and listening to something, you know, because I know when I've been to the theatre and there's been a live orchestra, there's something really surreal about it. It almost doesn't sound real because it's so in your face, you know.
Yeah, that's for sure too. So there's all got your musical journey there. So Stella. All right. For our next question right here, I guess, talk about the gear that you and Chris use too. So I guess both in studio, because I'm assuming you guys do yours in the man cave, or do you go to an actual studio?
No, everything that we've done so far has been in an actual studio. Because the guitar work we do and stuff, it needs to be done in a proper studio. I think home studio only works really for electronica, you know, because you need a proper live room. You know, I mean, the new single, you know, it just, the guitar on it just sounds amazing because it was all properly mic'd up and whatnot, you know. And you know, for me doing vocals as well, I mean, I've got to use some amazing mics, you know, that you could never afford at home. We're talking mics that are worth thousands, you know. And just, you know, you cannot beat the real studio experience as well, because I think it gets you in the game as well, you know. It's special when you get into a proper studio.
Yeah, that's for sure too. I would say, I think a lot of some groups actually do like their own sort of music at first. They had like their house, for instance, or maybe put the ideas together. And sometimes might either go to a studio or they might just actually do it right in their home studio, for instance. It's actually one of the beauties about it these days is like just pulling a nice, mine's a Focusrite 18920, which has really served me well doing these podcasts and everything too. But you get a good interface. You then just need a DAW on your computer, or at least have a nice sort of horsepower and everything to run a DAW on your computer. I mean, it's a beautiful thing these days, but I guess it's kind of a double-edged sword when you think about it, because I guess that's why studios had to probably jack up their rates just for other people who want to come in and like use their services and stuff too. I guess, have you noticed that?
No, not at all. I mean, the rates around here, you know, you've got your kind of like more kind of lower end studios that do really, I mean, I have to say they're really reasonable, you know. We've got a lot of choice of studios in Leeds, but I've been recording in this beautiful little studio in a village up in North Yorkshire, and it's an old vicarage, and it's great because you're away from everything as well, you know. And you know, it's like you can negotiate good rates, you know. And I think it's that thing of, if they know that you're going to be doing more than one song, you know, they'll give you better rates and stuff, you know. So I think, I mean, obviously it's more expensive than recording at home, but as I say, recording guitars properly, recording violins properly, things like that, you have to do in a studio. You need a proper live room. And there's just, you know, you just cannot get the ambience right if you haven't got that sorted. And you can tell. I mean, George records all his, because he writes electronic music, and he obviously can do that at home because it's electronic stuff and that, you know. So he uses the studio at home for that. I mean, Chris and I, the new single that we're going to be recording soon, we're going to do the piano and the synth stuff at home to save us some money, because we can obviously, you know, MIDI it straight in. So, you know, so it makes sense to do that to save as much money as you can. And then we'll do the other bits, you know, at the actual studio. And the studio that I use as well, they do analog mastering as well. And the difference between the digital and the analog mastering is pretty phenomenal. So yeah, you do get what you pay for.
That's for sure. And you know what? I actually had an interview recently with one of the groups. It was a Black Box Recovery, and they said there was actually an AI that does, like, I don't think mixing, but I think this one was just strictly more of mastering. So I guess what's been your opinion of like AI, for instance, whether it's like doing logos or really anything in general in terms of music wise?
I think we're going to end up with two types of music. There'll be the mass produced, homogenized AI stuff, and then you're going to have live music. Because this is the thing, isn't it, with AI? Very difficult to replicate it live, because people go to live shows because you want to hear something slightly different. You don't want to hear a carbon copy all the time of what, you know. You want to hear those little nuances and the shout outs to the audience, stuff like, you know. So I just think it will go down. I think it will be almost like, you know, lift music or supermarket background music. I think that's what AI will be like, you know, or the kind of just the homogenized pop. I mean, I remember back in the 80s when 80s 90s, remember Stock Aitken Waterman? and all that sort of started coming in, and everybody was like, oh my God, you know. And then we went through the auto-tune phase, and I cannot stand the sound of deliberate auto-tuned vocals. I cannot bear it. Auto-tune has a place, you know, for correcting tiny little nuances and stuff, but it's just not for me at all in terms of that. So I think it will find its place, but AI will become the new tribute band, and that's what tribute artists need to be worried about. It's going to put them out of a job.
I think there's that, but I think they also, I want to say, quote unquote, bring the artist back to life in a way, because I think you saw like what Michael Jackson was doing, where it was like a hologram. So I think it's going to be something like that too.
Yeah, there's like the ABBA show that's on in London that's been doing all that as well and stuff, you know. And like, yeah, I mean, if that's clever technology that can do that, you know, say, but yeah, tribute bands need to look out, because pubs will be coming along and just plugging in their holograms. With some AI for them entertainment.
Hey, Burrito will have like the Who and back with Keith Moon and Ed Weiser and all those guys. It's like them in their younger days. You finally get to see it on like a hologram sort of stage, for instance, too. So,
yeah.
I can see what you're doing there too. So fingers crossed. We'll have to see what happens. All right. So I guess in terms of the songwriting process here, because here we'll combine these two together too. First off, do you write the lyrics first and then do the music, or vice versa?
I don't have a fixed method. Sometimes a whole song will just come to me. The song Breathe, I wrote it in about half an hour. The songs, the words and the music, it all came at once. Changing Me all came at once, and Somewhere all came at once, you know. Whereas Free, that was slightly different. That was a bit of an experiment, that was, for me. I was up in Scotland, sat on the banks of a loch, as you do in Scotland, and I had a kind of like the melody going around in my head, and I just looked at what was around me, and I just started writing down what I could see, and the lyrics came from that. I'm free by the water, so I sat by the water. I can see the vital spark that stops me from going blind. Now, the vital spark was a little tugboat that was in the harbour at the time. Breaking from these prison chains. There was an old jail behind me, you know. So, yeah, so Free was written that way, of saying, right, what can I see, you know? And so sometimes I like to do that, kind of look around and think for inspiration for a song. Gods of Rock and Roll, that was very much, I couldn't think of what to write, because during COVID I set myself a challenge of writing something each day, you know, whether it was just a paragraph or whatever, just writing something, you know. And I couldn't think of anything, so I was listening to some music, and I was walking through the woods, and you know, so the lyrics, when words can no longer say how I feel today, I sit down on my knees and pray to the gods of rock and roll, because I was looking to them for inspiration, you know. You know, so I can do that, and then I'll have an essence of, sometimes I'll write on piano, sometimes I'll write on guitar. More often than not, I'll move between the two to develop the song. So if I write the melody sort of stuff on piano, sometimes I get stuck with the rhythmic side, so I then have to take it to the guitar to work out rhythmically what I want to do. And with some songs it will just be purely for piano. It might be words that I've written a year ago, and then suddenly they become relevant to what I'm writing. So yeah, there's no hard and fixed kind of process. And then what was the strangest one recently was, Chris came to me and he said, I've written a song. And I was like, oh, fantastic, because we've never written together before, Chris and I. And he played it to me, and he said, he hadn't written the lyrics yet and stuff. And he said, well, you know, I'm thinking about this, you know, being a bit of a kind of like beautiful day, a bit of a romantic song and everything. I was like, stop you there, Chris. Pulled out my guitar. I said, I wrote this last year and just didn't know what to do with it. And I'd written basically this song. but I'd got stuck, you know? And he had basically finished this song, not knowing I'd already written the bit that he could, so it's sometimes you're just looking for that extra jigsaw piece as well. Sometimes it'll come to me in a dream as well. I've got a new song that's going to be coming up on the next album called The Book. And I had a dream that I had this old journal. And every time I wrote, I'd write something down in it. And I'd go back and it would always be changed. The book kept changing what I was writing, and it was really frustrating because I couldn't get it right. So I've written all about this book, which is like this old book of time that writes your story for you, even the things that you don't want to be told, So yeah, so I think it's just been, I'm very open to what's going on around me, and I don't force it these days because I know a little spark will come to me, and I just have to wait if it's not all there at once.
You have to say what happens. And actually, I was literally going to say, like, it came to me in a dream last night.
It does.
It really does. So yeah.
Although I had a dream last night that Chris, our gig tomorrow, turns up, drinks too much vodka, is too drunk to play, and then he breaks my guitar strings. So
then we can say, "Damn it, Chris." So yeah.
So, yeah.
Actually, it was kind of leading to this next question right here. I guess what inspires your lyrical content? Because it seems like you kind of pull a lot of inspiration from more of the classical Disney and like all those other sorts of music as well.
I think it's about what do I want to say. I very much see my music as my memoirs. This is about a snapshot of where I am. So sometimes it could be from a place of pain or deep wound, but other times it can be celebrating something, or I've just got something to say and I need to get it off my chest. What I do always try to do though is I don't want my songs to be depressing, even if it's about a difficult subject matter. I try to make the difficult subject matter songs as beautiful as I can. I want them to be fragile and beautiful rather than depressing. I don't want to go into that whole kind of emo goth thing,
So we get too much of that already. So yeah, let's try to keep it positive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I try and sort of, make sure there's a positive spin on the lyrics that I write as well. I want them to be encouraging to people as well.
That's good to hear. Yeah. And I guess you normally touch on subjects maybe a little dark, but then maybe they find like some sort of light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, it's like the song Breathe is one of my most popular songs. It's done really, really well. And it's a song that it stops the room. I can go into a really chaotic environment. The minute I start playing Breathe, it's one of the songs that stops the room. And it was a song that was written when I was in a really dark place, and it was kind of like, do you know what? You're going to have to pull yourself up by the bootstraps here because you've only got you at the end of the day to pull yourself out of it. So Breathe is all about a song to myself, about being kind to myself. If you fall, I'll give you my hand and wings to help you land. Every last breath I have is yours, now breathe, And it was that realization at the time that all I have to do every day at a minimum is wake up and breathe. Anything else I achieve is amazing beyond that, but that's the only thing that we need to do. The part of the lyric is this heartbeat is for you, and this song is just for you. So I'm singing it to myself. It's that voice in my head going, come on, breathe, that's all you have to do.
That's almost like how CPR would normally be like whenever you're doing that. So,
that's exactly how I envisaged it when I wrote it, was somebody giving CPR. That's exactly how I did it. It was, it's that kind of that desperate kind of, come on, get a breath out of you. You can do this, That's
very cool. All right. So I guess before we jump into the fun questions right here, because we have briefs for them all pretty good, I guess you want to do any music promotion? Because I know earlier you mentioned about, I guess, some shows you and Chris are going to be playing at soon.
Yeah, we're tomorrow. So tomorrow we're in Knaresborough, a little market town in North Yorkshire, at the annual beer festival. Then what have I got coming up? I am playing solo on Friday in Harrogate in North Yorkshire, and that's at a little cocktail bar called Bacchus. I'll do some like laid back. They call it piano night when I play, so it's kind of like just depends. It can be very romantic or whatever. It just depends who's in, how that unfolds. On the 30th of May, we are playing as the featured band at the Pack Horse in Leeds, and then on the 13th of June, we're playing in Leeds as support to Carol Hodge and Julia Othmer for their Selenite Songs tour. And I'll give them a massive shout out because they've got, I think it's 13 dates across the country. So Julia's coming over from Kentucky to do that tour. So that's really, really exciting. They've been working on songs together across the globe, basically, and they're bringing it together with two pianos for the night. It's going to be quite an interesting thing, and they've been doing it around the phases of the moon, apparently. So it could be interesting. So that's the sort of the immediate stuff coming up. We've got some other stuff that's in the pipeline, but dates are not confirmed just yet.
That sounds good. Actually, it almost sounds like it would be a dueling of pianos, kind of the way you're describing it there too, or something like that.
Well, we're going to end up with 4 pianos on the stage.
Well, that explains a lot. Which way you could call it the Mexican standoff of pianos in this case. Yeah.
It's insane because I'm used to being the only piano that turns up at a gig, you know? So I always get really excited when there's other pianists turning up. You know, you might get like a synth or something, you know, but not many people turn up with a full size stage piano, you know. So I always get dead excited when I see other people. And I saw Julia and Carol play last year, and it was just it was just beautiful. It was just amazing. It was just like a masterclass in performance, because I just never get to watch pianists, and I have this eternal thing of what's the right mic position. You're singing and playing. It's a nightmare. I've tried headsets to give myself more freedom, but they just end up distracting me because they move all the time, you know. And it's just that eternal thing of what's the best way to set your mic up when you're playing a piano. So yeah.
All right, best of luck to you going forward there. So this ought to be interesting to see how this Mexican standoff of pianos turns out too, as I referenced earlier.
It'll be interesting, yeah.
All right, so Stella, we've briefed through the questions here pretty good. Let's go ahead and jump into some fun ones. Ready?
Yeah.
All right. So let's start with the first one right here, I guess. What would you consider as your favorite food?
Ooh, favorite food. I think probably more kind of like Tex-Mex kind of stuff. I like enchiladas and fajitas, you know, things like that. And I like barbecue, you know, good sort of hickory smoked barbecue, that kind of thing. I like meaty foods and cheese, lots of cheese.
Well, say, yeah, she probably dug the quesadilla when they put the steak in it too, because I know we do steak quesadillas at our place. So I was to say, you dig salsa sour cream whenever you do your Mexican dishes?
I don't like salsa so much, but I always have sour cream, and I can't stand guacamole. That doesn't come anywhere near it. But I do like my sour cream.
I think some Mexican restaurants might actually prep guacamole for you, like right then and there too. So I'm just picturing like, no, it's almost like my kryptonite.
The other thing as well is that some Mexican places put coriander in, and I really don't like coriander, and coriander doesn't like me. So that can be an absolute game changer in terms of I can't eat that if it's suddenly laced in coriander, because I just don't think it has a role in that kind of food. But some places do, and it's not often listed on the menu either. And it's just like, oh, come on, if you're going to put soap in my food, you need to tell me.
Need to be reminded ahead of time there too, yeah. I was going to say, too, because it almost sounded like it would almost be like a peanut allergy, but I think they always ask if they have any allergies, so I can see why.
Yeah.
So, all right. For the next one, what would you consider is your favorite movie?
I think I mentioned it, Breaking Glass, with Hazel O'Connor. Yeah, that's definitely my favourite movie of all time. Along with the original of The Colour Purple. The remake is dreadful. I had to switch it off.
Yeah, that's normally what happens with a whole lot of remakes. So we're not very good at that.
Yeah, but they turned it into a musical, and it completely detracted from the seriousness of the story. You know, it just wasn't the right movie to turn into a musical. So yeah, but the original, it's the only movie that consistently makes me cry.
I see. Actually, I thought you would have probably said The Pianist. I think the one I talked about, that Polish piano player.
I found it quite boring, that actually. But I also really loved the Lady Gaga A Star Is Born. I thought she did an absolutely amazing job in that. Really good film.
That's interesting. All right, but good choices nonetheless here too. For the next question here, first off, do you drink any alcohol?
I do. Too much, like a lot of people.
Let's try to. All right, as I say, let's try to at least moderate that going forward. But regardless, what would you say is your favorite alcoholic drink and non-alcoholic drink?
Not so much my favorite, but my go-to as a standard is red wine, and it has to be a Malbec or a Merlot. Don't put Cab Sav anywhere near me. I can't stand the stuff. So red wine. If I was looking at like a longer drink, I like spiced rum as well. And of course, I like my single malts as well.
When you say spiced rum, were you really big into Captain? Because that's usually one of my favorites.
Yeah, Sailor Jerry's is my favorite.
Never heard of that one. Is that like more strictly in your neck of the woods?
Must be. It absolutely trounces Captain's. Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's got a really lovely vanilla flavour to it.
I have to say debatable, but I have to try it out to judge it for myself too. So
just keep an eye out for it, but it's definitely worth trying if you see it. I was quite surprised when I first tried it. I was like, oh, that's actually really different. So
actually, we do have plans coming out to Scotland and then working our way down into England right there. So I guess lots of pretty good spots in Edinburgh. I guess. How far are you from Edinburgh? First off, actually.
It's about 4.5 hour drive.
So I guess, what do you recommend in terms of drinking wise?
Drinking wise, you mean what or where?
I mean, it's not trying to go too crazy. At least a good drink, something that's at least a good taste drink, we should say.
You need to find some really decent malt whiskies, and if you can get to a distillery, that would be the best way to do it. To do a proper tasting, you know. But yeah, I mean, when in Scotland, you have to drink single malts. You know, and that's the way you will win the hearts of the locals as well, if you can take your whiskey.
I'm going to take our whiskey home. Like there was a Van Halen song that was actually named "Take Your Whiskey Home," so that'd be interesting. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, but you need to go for the island malts, because they've got this kind of peaty, kind of smoky kind of taste to them. They're very different. So I like them. Some people can't stand them because they say they taste like cough medicine, but I really like them.
Hey, to each his own too. And actually, did you say which one was your favorite non-alcoholic drink?
Iron Brew.
Iron Brew.
Yeah, the only. Did you know that Scotland is the only country in the world where Coca-Cola is not the biggest seller? Iron Brew outstrips Coke in Scotland.
That's pretty strange. Is it along the same lines as a Coke?
Oh God, no, it's nothing like it. No, it's more of a kind of fruity kind of drink. It's just like, Iron Brew is just like, it's amazing. It's bright orange.
I was say, I'll have to put it on a bucket list. So, all right. Something to know going forward there too. So, hey, who knows? Maybe we'll stop by your place too, and maybe chill and see what Chris is up to as well.
This way, just get in touch. Do you know what I mean? And you know, it would be great to catch up.
as I hear about everybody else, like I said, I interviewed a good number of people out of the UK, so we got a long list, but nonetheless, I'll make sure to keep you on my prayers. So
yeah.
And for the last of the fun questions, what would you say is currently your favorite song or a song you've been listening to a good bit recently?
I have been revisiting All About Eve, Martha's Harbour, because we've been doing it as part of our show. And it's got to the point where it's just this earworm that I can't get rid. Yeah, because I've been learning, because I was learning the words for it. So I've been listening to that. But I tell you, a song I've been listening to, and I got it off one of the Band Together playlists. Red Print, Colour Me Insane. They're from the Netherlands, and it's just brilliant. It's really nice. I just like popping it on in the car, and it's just like, it's a really nice find, you know. And it's got kind of a 80s kind of punk vibe to it. She's got a really nice kind of tremolo in her voice. It's kind of like a bit like Polystyrene meets Susie Sue in her voice. It's really good. So I've been playing that. And going back to the country, another guy that I discovered on those lists is Rob Ronner, a song called California Nights. And it's just such a great song to drive to. It's just so happy, and it evokes just this lovely image, you know, of, well, you know, it's lovely. So yes, I've been kind of like, and then I've been going, say, back down the kind of, I've been listening to a lot of old goth music, like Fields of the Nephilim and Sisters of Mercy, just recently. So
it actually comes around full circle over goth stuff again. So you can see what.
Yeah.
That's a good choice. Actually, I don't think I've heard that music before. Those two artists as well. Because you mentioned one was out of the Netherlands, Colour Me Insane, and are they part of our Band Together group?
They're called Red Print, the actual band, and they're on Band Together. Yeah. So definitely check them out. I did a little bit of stalking, and they're good live as well, by the looks of it as well, you know, which is always, I was like, if you can replicate that live, then yeah. But I love her vocal. It's really strong, and it's really clear, and it's unique, you know. So yeah. And Rob Ronner as well, he's on Band Together as well, and it's just, yeah, he's got some great tunes out. He really has. You hear some people and you think, why are you not famous? This song's amazing, you know? And it just comes down to luck, doesn't it? I think for a lot of people, whether a song makes it or not.
I guess so. Actually, by the way you kind of pronounce his name too, it's almost like Rob Reiner. I guess, I don't know if he was an activist, because I know in South Park they were kind of ripping on him for being anti-smoking. So not too sure, but that's pretty much what we were saying at first. Think like, oh, he's actually a country music star. It's all good. But great choices nonetheless. All right, so Stella, we've reached down to one more question. And actually, did you have any questions for me? Or any final words you want to say before we jump into the final question?
Tell me, where are you?
I'm on the eastern side of the states, so I'm in Pittsburgh, PA. From Steel City, is what I like to say, because we got a Steeler Nation in and around the states and probably around the world too. So
right.
So I'm chilling here for a good bit, and actually born and raised, and it's pretty diverse. I mean, you get a whole lot. You get your Poles, the Germans. There were some Greeks, and you pretty much have it all out here, to be honest too. Even though it kind of spread out. So
yeah. I'd love to come and explore a bit more. I've been to the States once. I flew into Chicago, and then I went up through, went to, God, my brain's gone. Went down to Kentucky, really enjoyed that, and went all the way north up to Mackinac, the Mackinac Island. Oh God, what's that? My brain's gone. So I did Illinois. It was good. So I went to see a friend. I stayed with a friend, and we went on a ghost hunt at Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Kentucky.
I thought you would have done the Bourbon Trail in Kentucky there, because that's what we did with Gene Bean a couple times.
Yeah. No, it was so surreal to be immersed in the accent. you know, because it's just like, wow, people, this isn't just on the telly. People do talk like this, you know. But yeah, I'd love to get out and do a bit more exploring in the States.
I'd say if you thought the accent was bad there, wait till you come to Pittsburgh. So I'd say good luck with that, honey. All right, we'll see what happens. But it'll be nice to get you out here too. So, did you have anything else, or
no? That's
all right. So for the final question right here, and actually I did ask about advice earlier, so we can kind of mold these two together right here too. So, given what COVID has done, obviously seems you were pretty blessed. It seemed to be a blessing in disguise when you think about it too. But for those musicians who have been impacted by COVID or whatever else that happened in their life too, what sort of message of hope and advice could you give to musicians and people out there as we try to move forward in the post-COVID world?
I think it's just a bit like what I said about the song Breathe, is that only you can kind of pull yourself out of things. And you got to reframe when life gets difficult and when you come across barriers, you have to reframe it as, right, what am I learning from this? You know, this is going to be a good song. You know, if this was a country song, what would the ending be? You know? And that, you know, everyone has doubts, you know, but at the end of the day, you're writing your music because you have something to say. And for me, it started off as a way to record my memoirs, you know, when the world has ended and there's a big library in a bunker somewhere, you know, under the sea or whatever, and the aliens come and find it, I would just hope they would find my song Breathe in there, or another song, you know, that kind of says, actually, this is what life was like, you know, this is what ordinary people did, you know. So it doesn't have to be spectacular. You don't have to be a Lady Gaga or whatever, you know. It's a case of, have you written it? Get it down, get it recorded, because it's for you. It's your legacy that you're leaving behind, you know. And it's like, people who are not creative don't have that way of leaving a legacy, you know. So if you think about it in terms of, this is my memoirs, this is what I'm leaving behind as part of me, you know. A lot of the great artists didn't sell a single painting when they were alive, but now their paintings are worth millions because they left a legacy, you know. And that's how you have to look at it. And don't ever expect to make any money because you will always be disappointed. If you come at this as, I want to make money, forget it. Get yourself a boring part-time job that pays just the basic bills, you know, because it will take the stress off you so that you can do your music well. So yeah, that's the advice that I would give.
Spoken like a true prodigy. You know, you're all right too, because I actually do. I want to say 3 jobs really, because it's podcasting and then YouTubing and all that stuff is like a 3rd job in my sense too. But I do work in a restaurant as a 2nd job that covers the bills.
Exactly. But the other thing as well about doing those ordinary jobs, it keeps you in touch with ordinary people. You know, if you're always just hanging around with other creatives, you know, you can kind of lose a sense of what the rest of the world is doing, you know. And you can get inspired by the mundane as well, you know, whether it's the journey to work or whatever. You can get inspired by that.
That's true. All right, fair enough. All right. So Stella, we reached the end of my podcast right here, and boy, did we talk for about, and actually I think with the editing wise it's going to be a little short, but we just crossed the hour and 30-minute mark right here too. So did you have any final words, any shout outs you want to say before we close?
Go and listen to my new single. It's called You Don't Listen.
Quite by accident too. It was actually, it worked out too. I mean, it just works out. So yeah. Want to say any shout outs or anything too?
Shout out to George, who's downstairs. I don't know what he's got a cold, so he's feeling miserable downstairs. Shout out to George. shout out to Chris. Can't wait to do the gig tomorrow. Yeah, and just everybody else who supports me, you know, and big shout out to all the guys on Band Together, because I cannot say just how, you know, awesome everybody is, and you know, I wish everybody well.
And also, thanks for putting that post on Facebook too, because that's how I found out about you and Chris. It was, follow us on Instagram. Actually, it was strange too. It was a Facebook post, but he told us follow us on Instagram and everywhere else too. So I was like, I got you.
Oh yeah, cross post everything. So.
And just for the audience's sake, can you list what social media and streaming platforms you guys are on so they can check you out?
Yeah, on Facebook, of course. Or on Instagram. Or on Twitter. We are on TikTok, but I'm locked out of the account and can't reset the passwords, so everything's very dated on there. I've just given up and I'm going to start a new one because there's embarrassing stuff on it anyway. So, and we're on Threads. Haven't got a clue what it's all about, Threads, but everybody else is on it, so we're on there. So yeah, I think that's all. Oh, YouTube as well.
Yeah, it sounds good. So everyone, again, forget about Bandcamp. Yeah, actually, they were saying on Facebook yesterday, I say share your band links.
You can buy physical CDs from Bandcamp of our albums.
I didn't know about that, but that's interesting. Yeah, that'd be cool. All right, so everyone, my guest today was Stella Anderson, hailing from the UK. So make sure you go check her out. Make sure you hit up on the socials and everything too. And if you see her coming in your neck of the woods, go check her out. She's got a hell of a voice. So let's see what's going to happen going forward right here. So it's going to be an interesting journey. So Stella, I want to wish you all the best luck for tomorrow. I will say that. And hopefully people come and listen to your music as well as on the streaming platforms for your new music that's going to be coming out. So you stay safe. Rock on. Stay tuned, y'all.
Thanks a lot, Brian. You take care.